Here we are again. No one saw that coming.
Everyone sees you coming.
In their own time.
Yes, indeed. It's really actually very exciting to be back and to kind of be able to look on the time we spent on Michael's Walk and reconnect with all the people who supported us and were part of it.
Hi, I'm Michael Earp.
And I'm Bayley Turner.
Welcome to Michael's Walk.
The podcast.
Michael's Walk is a road trip, a search for something. Spoilers! It's myself, and it was inside all along.
If only it were that simple.
Driven by Tori Amos's album, Scarlet's Walk, I'm recreating the journey Scarlet took in its 20th anniversary year.
I'll also be there.
With the loving and patient,
always patient,
support of Bayley and Teague Lee, 3 trans queers set out across America.
That's 33 states in 55 days.
To connect with the songs, the land that inspired them, and the fans inspired by the songs. We'll talk music, travel, healing, and hope as we ask the questions, how do I heal from 15 years of coercive control and manipulation?
And what role does the music we listen to play in our own relationship narratives?
We've self-produced this podcast and trip.
You can support us via GoFundMe.
For the full story, head to michaelerp.net.
Hi.
Hi. Here we are talking about what's been happening in the last 2 years. Because it has been 2 years.
Yeah. And a lot's gone down. It's been
a time.
Yeah. It's one of those things, we said when we left, I listened to the first episode not too long ago and just where we were talking about this is the trip of a lifetime and we're going to be forever changed. And I was like, oh, they had no idea.
Oh, baby. Yeah.
They really didn't know what it would be.
Well, we were right, though.
That's true. Yeah.
We were forever changed. For instance, I'm still chained to this project in bizarre ways. One day I will be done.
Yes. I know that when I speak to my mum, she'll always just ask, oh, how's Michael going with the book? Like, it's just my mum's kind of is on one about it. And like, writing a book takes actually quite a long time. I don't know if you understand that. Whereas for me, writing a poetry collection shouldn't take that long. Like, writing a poetry collection is quicker, but somehow I've still managed to take 2 years to write it.
Like, to be fair, I have had 3 anthologies come out in those 2 years.
I had one other poetry collection come out that needed to come out before.
And all of my creative work, including writing and editing, happens outside of my full-time job.
Yes.
So it's not as if I'm just a slacker that never gets around to anything.
Well, I think that's the other thing that maybe is worth kind of reminding people is when we came back, we were broke. Our first priority was to make money so we could afford Maggi noodles and Coke.
For context, between the 3 of us, once we added up everything we spent on that trip, we spent roughly, was it $45,000?
Something like that,
or 55. I know it was one of the two, but it was a good deposit for a house that we all waved goodbye to.
Yeah, happily.
Yes.
I'd much rather have what we had than a house. But that is a significant sum of money to part with for all that it was as a collective.
And credit where credit's due, we did receive a lot of donations through to GoFundMe. And so collectively we probably were given roughly $15,000.
Yeah. We were so lucky to have such incredible supports. I've just had to do my taxes from that year.
Oh, God.
Because I've left them really late. And I saw my PayPal, like where people sent money when we were in crisis and just went, wow, people really did just like... Anyway, I'm sure we'll get to some of those sort of
reminisce
stories. But, I think part of the 2-year time it's taken us to kind of really come back to this in earnest is because we had to get back to earning money and getting back and life. I think a lot about the time we spent in medicine.
Yeah, I think about that a lot.
Yeah, that's just that day and the things we talked about that day by the lake really characterized what the next 2 years were going to be about for us.
setting intentions and at least intending to let go of things as well. Sometimes the process of letting go, which kind of ties in with the song choice for this episode, this season. So I guess we'll explain here that we thought we would use Scarlet's Hidden Treasures as a scaffold for this season. It's a lot looser than Scarlet's Walk because there's no map directly associated with it, which is handy because we don't have another $45,000 to go back to America.
Yeah, do it all again.
However, we're going to roughly group our thoughts in with these 8 songs. For those who are less familiar, Scarlet's Hidden Treasures was originally a 6-track CD that came with the special edition, limited edition of Scarlet's Walk. However, just last year, we were all thrilled that it finally made its digital debut on streaming services and included Operation Peter Pan, which was a B-side on a sort of fairy tale single, and Mountain, which was a digital release only promotional track, which I was so surprised because of how obsessed I've always been with Mountain, and I did have my terrible web rip from back in the day, but when it was released, there were so many friends and fans who had never heard it before, and it's like, well, welcome to this monumental banger because it's brilliant.
Oh, it's right up there as one of her best. And it's just so different to what we sort of normally get from her. And I think everyone who knows Mountain well has a very good relationship with her.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing... So in my Patreon that I release monthly, one of the things that I put in that offering is a playlist that I've thematically put together of some description. And the month that Scarlet's Hidden Treasures was released digitally, I'm like, oh, thank goodness, I can now put Mountain on playlists that other people can listen to. Immediately, the theme was Mountain, and off we went.
Songs about mountains.
Yeah, basically. But what a fun time that was. So...
I mean, she wrote it in... We were looking this up the other night. Wrote it in Santa Fe?
Actually, I don't want to say anything because I feel like my facts are all over the place. I think I heard a story at some point of her talking about how it was somehow linked to when she had some sort of writer's block in the studio in Santa Fe or just outside of it. I forget the actual town name, but where she recorded Under the Pink. And it was somehow linked to being able to see a particular mountain through the window. But then I don't know if I've just made all of that up.
And
very little
you are an
written.
exquisite writer. You absolutely could have come up with something like that.
Because what does mountain mean for you?
I'd always associated it with kind of hermitude, and it's got a very witchy vibe. And so I think I just thought about, it felt very Women Who Run with the Wolves. And I think that was what allured me to it a lot, was just, it was the song I listened to when I needed to just get away and head off into the forests and take some time to relax. And it's sort of got a lot of associations with the far north of Queensland for me, which is where I sort of did a lot of my growing up. Yeah, it's just that thing of like, she'll come back, at some stage, but, at the moment she needs to have her time in the den and her time in the wild and kind of reconnect to those real primal forces that are critical to who she is as a person.
So did you see the mountain, because she'll be down when the mountain lets her go. The mountain was not a malevolent keeping of her.
No, it was kind of, I don't know, there's something kind of doll's housey about it. For me, it was about kind of just the reassurance of I don't know, you know this better than anyone. I head off at any given time. And I'm a bit of a runner, and certainly was, years ago. And it was just that thing of trying to reassure people in my life, don't worry, like I'll be back. I just need to go and sort of do this adventure. I need to kind of go and be with myself and figure out some shit. And no, the mountain was a really important, powerful kind of life force. No, I never saw it as a sort of, yeah, that's interesting.
It's not that I necessarily see it that way, because for me, much like Scarlet's Walk as an album, this song meets me where I am. And so sometimes it is a power song about, you know, claiming power. And yes, very much that wild, you know, reclaiming yourself kind of thing. Because then the outro breakdown is like to return to you. And so there's lots of seeking that I have done personally on returning to myself, because I'm constantly questioning which version of me am I supposed to be returning to, because before all of my trauma, I was a teenager, and do I want to be a teenager again? I don't think I really do. But what version of me is there to return to if not that one? And how do I acknowledge who I am now and the growth I've been through, whilst also releasing myself from what troubles me? And so sometimes when I listen to it, the mountain is a malevolent force and she'll be down when the mountain lets her go. But then sometimes that mountain is just grief.
Yeah, for sure.
And grief takes its time, and it's not like she's going anywhere. Yeah, the way the city spat you out and kissed the pavements that you thought you had protected, or had you protected, sorry. There's a lot going on.
That's that thing is, it's interesting that the mountain is sort of this idea of yourself that you can't let go of. It's funny you should bring this up, because I've been thinking about this a fair bit as well myself. So when I was a teenager, I was kind of known for being quite flirty and very kind of, I've considered myself a relatively sexual person at the time. I was really interested in and really engaged with people as a sort of teenager. And then I endured sexual violence, and it just destroyed that part of me. And sometimes I think, well, is the aim of healing to go back to being sort of sexually vibrant and kind of trusting and out there? And I'm like, well, I don't know if it is. And my therapist, when I've spoken to about this and other sort of scenarios, you know, I've gone into my therapy sessions a lot being like, well, if this hadn't happened, then I'd be here, I'd be doing this, and I want to be doing that. Which is, I appreciate that you want to live as though this big traumatic thing hasn't happened to you, but it has. And you kind of have to work with what you've got. You've got to kind of work with the cards you've been dealt. And that line about kiss the pavements, you know, kiss the boys, it's like there are so many things I'm like, oh, it should have been like this. And you can get really caught up in that. You can get really sort of stuck in what might have been, you know, shoulda, woulda, coulda kind of thing.
Yeah, and do I need to be the one to point out that look how far you've come in your career because of...
Yes.
Which is what I struggle with too. Like, how much do we have to celebrate wins that came out of awfulness as a way to sort of justify them?
Yeah.
It's a real difficult question, because I don't want anyone to go through what either of us have.
No.
But some of what's being achieved now would literally never have happened without
100%. 100%.
So, how's the creative practice?
Segue. The creative practice is good. I think after I'd written a poetry collection before we went. My plan was to, once we came back from this trip, was to launch that poetry collection. That didn't happen, and like everything got in the way, and there were issues and hurdles, and times where things lapsed. And so I already had this sort of project that I really wanted to release as a poetry collection. I wanted that to be my first, and I only released that last month finally. So it took a long time between writing and releasing. So I've kind of been focused on that. But since we kind of got back, it's just been more focus on career moves. Because that's the thing, I go, where did that time actually go? Like, it's just all a bit weird because I go, well, when I think of it in concertina, it doesn't feel like a lot's happened in that time. But, you know, I changed jobs a few times. I found a career and a job that I love, and it's in the field that I really wanted to be in, which was kind of a big revelation from the trip when we watched Tori. When we watched Tori, do Me and a Gun in LA, it was just such a kind of call back to working in consent and working in the field, and running my business, which had kind of taken a big backseat while I went through transition. And so I kind of focused on getting back into that kind of work that I wanted to do. I focused on healing from my relationship that had fallen apart during COVID lockdown. When I came back, like at the end of Michael's Walk, for those who don't know me or aren't following channels outside of that, like you'd know that I met someone on the trip and we're still together now. It'll be nearly 2 years we've been together. So kind of fostering that relationship, long distance, and now he lives here in Australia. So it's kind of just been so much life stuff that creative work hasn't really had a chance to push through until kind of now, which is why we wanted to do this season, was to give people sort of insight into what we're doing and how we make work and what the results are from the trip, because that's what people really invested in. They invested in knowing that we were going to write these projects. We were like, well, we're finally getting onto it after life really kind of had to take some time to find a new way of operating after we came back from the trip. We were just so kind of altered by it.
Yeah.
So that took time. I was really grateful. I went to America again a couple of times, obviously because I then now had a partner there. And one of those times I went to New Hampshire and I got to write and do some music stuff with a band called the Rough and Tumble. I'll probably talk about that in a lot more detail in a later episode. But so I've been kind of chipping away at the collection that's related to Michael's Walk. There's about 5 out of the 22 poems that I want to write for it that are in really good shape. Yeah, and the hope is that by the time we kind of wrap this season that I'll have a release date is kind of my hope. That it's either it's getting toward being finished. That'd be pretty cool. Excellent. What about for you? What have you been up to?
Well, I mean...
You've been busier than me. You've been working your butt off.
Oh my goodness.
But you had a much bigger project than I have.
I was recently at a writers' festival and someone said to me, Michael, I feel like you're everywhere. And I said, I feel like I'm everywhere.
But nowhere. Where am I?
I'm in a million pieces.
Yeah, honey.
No, but for context, like editing an anthology for a publisher is a lot of work. And I was meeting deadlines while we were in America. So I was following up on writers when they submitted drafts. I was then doing edits on the road to then get it back to the publisher in time because I didn't want to be the one to slow down that project.
Just to kind of clarify for listeners, this is for Everything Under the Moon, which is your queer fairy tales collection, which we'd spoken about back when we first sort of met as this beautiful idea. I'll never forget, we did this big walk around Albert Park and you told me about it and I was so excited. And so you were pulling that together.
It was a long time. Well, from idea to publication, that project took 4 years. I worked with my agent, Linda Epstein, who housed us for a couple of nights.
Hey, Linda. I hope Linda's listening.
I hope Linda's listening.
Woodstock was
heaven.
A real highlight. It was a real... Actually, Woodstock is very mountain. Yes. It was very much like go into the forest and kind of heal.
Yeah.
Because
and
then we got those cities spit us out big time.
And that sculpture garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's mountain vibes too.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Opus 42.
So, yeah, I'd been working on it for quite some time and then we got the publishing contract and then I just had to keep on top of deadlines because I didn't want to be the one slowing that down. So when I got back, there was plenty more of that going on. And then somewhere in 2023, It may have even been, no, it was towards the end of 2022. So soon after I got back, I then got offered another anthology possibility with a different publisher, where a friend of mine, Alison Evans, and I edited a complete anthology of trans authors writing pirate stories.
It's so cool.
And so that's coming out in June this year. And so just anthology on top of anthology kept on stacking up. And there's so much work, but my goodness, I love them so much. And then that kept on distracting from my writing of the memoir related to the trip, on top of the fact that writing it is very emotional.
Of course.
I could set aside days for writing and get 2 or 3 hours in and have written a scene that was so emotionally draining that I'd be looking at the rest of my writing day. I had another 3 or 4 hours that I could work, but I had to tap out because I was just spent from writing the scene that I'd just written. Then there's all the planning and stuff that goes into it. So, and that's all happening outside of full-time work. I also changed jobs in that time, in December 2022.
Healing of the trip,
Now I work for a publisher as a sales rep again, which is something I used to do before. And that's fantastic because I get to drive around and visit all the bookshops again and talk books. I mean, I don't want to give away my entire creative process in the very first episode, but effectively,
in some,
I finally managed to complete first draft in January of this year, which was such an achievement, but also it's almost twice as long as it should be.
Yes.
So I'll talk more about that.
We'll talk about, that'll be your big project over the course of making this season, is just to kind of see what that second draft looks like.
So my hope is that by the time we finish recording these episodes and release the last one, I will have finished my second draft and be ready to send it out into the world and see if anyone is interested in publishing the thing. So that's my goal over the course of this podcast recording. It's almost like we're using these episodes to keep ourselves in check.
Absolutely.
We have to answer to the people.
But it's so, yes, we do. Well, I mean, we do feel a great responsibility to the community we built doing this, and we've many times met and been like, we really want to honour the contribution of our community, and this was done for Tory people. This project was for Ears with Feet, and the people who took their time out and housed us and fed us and looked after us, and they did it knowing that we were moving towards something. And as we've sort of stated, both of us had a lot of unfinished business to take care of for us to now be able to go, I feel like we're both finally at a place where we can go, right, this is the top of my list. This project is my creative practice from here on out. And that's just so exciting. And it's so exciting making this season 2 years after we departed. It's just, I don't know, it all feels like the right time in a way.
Yeah. We're also going to make sure these episodes are not overlong.
Yes.
They're going to be quick chats around the songs and the things we're working on creatively. But by all means, feel free to shoot in a message and we'll incorporate it into a upcoming episode. What I love is that every now and then I still get a message from someone who's like, I was revisiting podcast episodes, and
That's so lovely.
It's wild to me that people put up with us rambling for that many hours the first time, and they're happy to go back and revisit.
You must have said something interesting.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
One can only hope.
And this whole song also makes me think about Artist's Way.
Yes.
There's if you're not familiar, Julia Cameron, who's kind of did a program in New York around creative rehabilitation. It was to kind of help creatives kind of get back on track. And part of the sort of, you're going to release this book, it's incredibly popular, and it's sort of this 12-week creative rehab program to kind of get you back into the creative spirit of things and get you connected back to your creative source. And one of the chapters that I found most interesting was one about creative U-turns. And this is about when you kind of, something sends you off in the wrong direction and away from your creative source and away from your creative motivation, and eventually you kind of have to take a U-turn and go back in the right direction, or maybe it's the other way, where something sends you on a U-turn and then you have to turn back in. It's kind of the same principle. I loved that chapter because it's very much kind of reminiscent of this. Like,
now that you mention that, two things. One is, after a writer's workshop that I did last week, I was like, I'm going to do morning pages again, and managed them 2 days before I then just couldn't handle it. Would like to get back into doing my morning pages and kind of letting go of the expectation of every word that I put down needs to mean something and go somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
Because I really struggle with the economy of writing words just for me, which is ridiculous. Yeah. But then I've also now thought that maybe the story of the looking at the mountain through the window and writer's block came from Artist's Way.
Yeah, because what's funny is the picture on the cover of Artist's Way, and Artist's Way has had different versions of the same cover for the last 30 years it's been in print, and it is an image of a mountain.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe I'm conflating that anecdote from that book rather than necessarily it being a Tory related.
I don't know. I think it's great. I think we should enter it into law.
Yeah.
Call the Never Shut Up people. Call Danny. Call Ephraim. I want everyone on this. I want everyone spreading this story that Tory was stuck in Santa Fe looking at a mountain and couldn't write.
Yeah.
I would actually, if you're listening to this, I would highly recommend it as a sort of, as a practice and something to try. And I'm actually reconsidering doing it again because I've yet to get through it from start to finish. Yeah. I've fallen off the wagon with it twice and I want to get through it.
I thought that I might try it again, but it would be the first time I've done it on medication.
Yeah, great.
Which, who knows? Maybe that'll make all the difference.
Yeah, we can both pop a Dexy and have a great...
The other thing I thought...
I'd be super down for us to do that together, by the way.
Yeah, all right, let's do it. But the other thing I've been thinking about is, rather than mounting the expectation of doing that 12-week course exactly as it's described, mounting the mountain, of going through and pulling out the activities that she describes in it and sort of doing them a bit more at leisure, but at least sort of moving towards a more creative regime, even if it's not quite as strict as there. Because in it, there are weeks where you're asked to refrain from doing certain types of creative activity, and that doesn't always work for me because if I have time, I just need to lean into it. And sometimes I don't have time. But yeah, we shall explore that and
in futures.
Yes.
So we looked when we were kind of building this season out. We're like, well, we want the episodes to work a bit differently. We want them to be a bit shorter. We talked about what was kind of the format of what we used to do and what we sort of want to keep and what we want to. And we talked about keeping a song swap, because that was just such a lovely thing to be able to share. We love sharing music with each other.
Yes.
I also wondered, I'm just going to put this on the spot here, I'd be keen to do a song swap, but I think we should also do a prescription, speaking of medication. So,
just to recap, we did talk about prescriptions in season 1.
Yes.
But basically what it means for us is anytime we need a bit of, emotional support for whatever reason, at whatever level, we'll text the other and just say, I need a prescription. And usually it's implied that it's a Tory prescription.
Yeah.
But it doesn't need to be. It can be anything.
It's fun when it's a Tory one.
It is. And then the other one, sometimes with literally no context, just sends a song that we think is right for the other at that moment, and more often than not it so superbly hits the mark that we just didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And I remember the time you sent me the pool, and when you sent it I was like, what the Like, why on earth would you send me that? And then I listened to it and read the lyrics, and I was like, oh, this is me right in this moment.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the universe told you that one.
Yeah, it's just a spirit, because it's literally, we try not to think about it too much. We just go to the Tori Amos song file in your head and go, what jumps out, and you just kind of give them that. And the more odd it seems to you, the more likely it is to kind of, I think you sent one, I think the last time I asked one, you sent me Lust.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck you, bitch. Like, damn, you got you can cut right to the heart of like what I was sort of struggling with at the time. And it's just like, this is why we do this, because it's just such an effective tool. So I feel like we should keep, maybe we'll do song swap, but let's also do a prescription for each other that's maybe a bit more kind of present to life at the moment.
Yeah. After we've talked about what's going on with us for half an hour.
Yes.
So the song swap, as it was in season 1, was songs that we felt were somehow linked, whether it be thematically or musically, but where we could make connections between the Tory song that we're talking about and other songs. And so for Mountain, what did you come up with?
I'd put Crystal by Stevie Nicks. And this is a song that most people will know if they've ever watched Practical Magic. But it actually started out as a song that Lindsay Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, who were kind of a part of Fleetwood Mac, and they were part of Buckingham Nicks, that they did their own kind of band when they first met, and then they joined Fleetwood Mac as a duo. But they did this song called Crystal, and which is really just about falling in love and trusting in love. But there's something kind of... Lindsay then did one for Fleetwood Mac, like just Lindsay singing, and then Stevie did one for her sort of own, and just her version is just so beautifully Stevie witchy. It just kind of has, for me, it's that mountain witchy vibe that Crystal really is able to pick up on. It's also about the overwhelm of things and just kind of needing to be in your own clarity. So I loved that one. And I also thought I'd share a song called I Guess She Breathed a Little Calmer, which is by an artist called Tessa Bird, who I love, and is a very dear friend of mine, sort of indie, Adelaide-based, incredible soulful voice. And Tess actually wrote a song called The Heavens Did Protest. The Heavens Did Protest. When she made that song, she had to cut bits of it out that she'd written in a demo that she'd sent me years and years prior to releasing it on Spotify. And I asked if I could have her offcuts, the things that didn't make it to the main single. I asked if I could use them for one of my poetry tracks, 1, 2, 3, Infinity, which she let me do. But anyway, I Guess She Breathes a Little Calmer. Tessa's kind of moved in a different direction than music. It's kind of going into a whole bunch of other stuff. And this is kind of a big sort of last release from a bunch of recording shit. And the song is about, it's a song about the woman that you didn't get to be. And it's kind of addressed to a lover. It's not about who he picked. It's about the fact that he picked not her. And something about it, just in the energy and the sort of this fierce womanhood piece of it, just really spoke to my sense of mountain as well. So I'm going to put those two in the playlist.
Amazing.
What about you?
The first one that came to mind is, ironically, it started as a... My God, where is my brain?
Our brain's finishing. It's time to wrap up the episode. Our brains are breaking.
Stevie Nicks is what I was trying to say, but not Stevie Nicks. The first one that came to mind is Landslide, but performed by Anoni. You can find it on Spotify, but under the performer name Anthony. It's still there on a Fleetwood Mac tribute album. And it...
I don't think I've heard this.
Oh my God, it's
this will fuck my shit right up.
Oh yeah.
Can we swear on these? I don't know.
Oh, we were swearing on the first.
Oh, good. Well, then we're fine. But these are gonna fuck my shit right up.
Yeah. Yes. It destroys me every single time, and because for me, Mountain is sometimes about being kept somewhere or sort of holding something. That whole idea of the landslide bringing you down.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is a landslide that lets you go.
Yes.
I thought this was a very good link. And then another one that I just discovered recently is a song called No Way to Let Go by Malin Salstedt, who is relatively new to me and apparently not widely known, because I saw on Spotify this morning that she has 84 monthly listeners on Spotify, and I'm like, you go, girl.
Yeah.
But this song, she's got quite a few that I really love, but this particular one is all about when you hold on to your grief and you hold it in your chest, in your heart, and then the chorus is that, like, she doesn't sing that's, but it's implied that that's no way to let go. Like, you can't hold on to everything and then expect to move on from it.
Interesting.
And so again, it's more that personal grief mountain that you need to let go from.
Which is very much sort of the theme of
the mountains.
Yeah, I think, we've talked about the trip being the mountain for us. Like, we haven't been able to kind of let go of this sort of adventure we went on and the impact it's had on our lives. But I think bigger than that is sort of the mountain of why we went on that trip. Like, the attachment has kind of been trauma bonded together. So that's a really lovely offering. I expected you to put Mountains We Met by Christine and the Queens.
I'm
throwing that in last minute because you just can't. You can't go your whole life without listening to Mountains,
people will accuse me of just choosing it because it has mountains in the title.
Well, that's their problem. Because
yes,
we can absolutely worth doing.
Together, we will add that one because I nearly chose that, but then changed it at the last minute. All right, then hit me with your prescription.
My prescription, Beulah Land.
Oh wow. Okay, I'll spend some time with that and see how we go.
Yeah. I don't know the song very well at all. But once again, it's just...
It's always been for me about kind of religious upbringing. It's only because when I was in my early 20s, I read a novel called Witch Girl, which was sort of not Salem, but that period witch trial kind of setting, but set in a town called Beulah. And so that has then coloured my reading of it. And then when I transpose that onto a religious upbringing where there's all these expectations in place, yes, it's a one of those ones for me. For you, I just was getting vibes of Liquid Diamonds.
Ooh, fun.
Surrender and Start Your Engines.
Another song that I know some people go nuts for her, but I've not ever kind of connected, so I'm excited about that. I'll chuck her on the way home.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Choir Girl that I've not... I think Choir Girl is very watery and very emotive, and I don't like feelings.
I mean, you are a water bearer.
That's true. I am a water bearer. So episodes are getting released fortnightly as our plan. But in the interim, how are the ways that people can kind of engage with you online?
Well, I'm on social media, mainly on Instagram at littleelfman.com.
You also have Little Bookman.
Yeah, I recently changed it to Little Book Pal.
Oh, cute.
With underscores in between.
With the non-binary emergence.
But then I wanted to change Little Elfman too, but it's published in too many books and things, so I just thought I'll just leave it. Yeah. But I would have liked to have changed it to Little Elf Pal as well. I've also got a newsletter that comes out once a month with just life updates and all my book stuff, and then a Patreon, which is just $5 a month, basically the price of a cup of tea, buying me if you want to take me out for a cuppa but you don't live nearby. Patreon, you can do so, and in return you get a writing sample, an in-depth review of a book I've read and loved, some other book recommendations, and a playlist that I have crafted on a particular theme.
Yeah. Great.
That's you.
Get engaged. You can find me on Instagram as All Bayley Does, which is all BAYLEYDOES. You can also find my stuff on Bandcamp, but when I do poetry, it's under the stage name Turner, which is TYRNYR. You can buy Ulysses on Amazon. The link is in my Instagram if you want to buy the poetry collection. You can buy it as a print book or as an ebook. The sort of 3 songs that have been built out of that collection in collaboration with the incredible Matt Katz and a bunch of singers, including Angie Hart from Frente, which is amazing. You can buy those on my Bandcamp, or you can just stream them on Spotify. Those are usually the ways to connect with me.
Awesome. Well, that brings us down from the mountain.
It does.
And I feel like now that we've started this, like, it's the beginning of a letting
I'm really
go.
excited, actually.
Yeah. Because I was making this podcast a mountain in my head. And then I'm just like, I just need to be a bit more chill with it, let it be what it is, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.
The Michael's Walk podcast acknowledges that the journey they are undertaking takes place on the sacred and unceded nations of many proud Indigenous peoples. From the lands of the Wurundjeri and the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, we are fortunate to call home, to each and every Native American tribe's land we'll set foot on as we travel. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and humbly acknowledge their sovereignty.